Boo. Alright, so today we're going to talk about Stephen King. And how we're going to talk about him is going to be very different. Before we get into that, sorry, my nose kind of hurts from sniffling. Oh, you ever get that? Where it starts like burning? And anyway, today we're going to talk about Stephen King in a very unfamiliar fashion. But let's first discuss who Stephen King is. So, Stephen King, acclaimed writer, renowned. He's the most successful writer in modern, publishing. He's written shitloads of books. He's, ow, it really hurts. He's written shitloads of books. Oh, God, man. He's seen a shitload of them put into film. And he's made TV shows, or been associated with TV shows that he's probably written. I'm not too familiar. He's married, has kids. He's old man. He's an older man, probably in his 60s nowadays. And one day, Stephen King was working on his next novel, typing away furiously, as he probably does. And then he came out of his study, and his wife was gone. The kids were gone. Everything he knew was gone. So what did he do? He read the note that was left for him, and it said that because of his work, because of his obsession with writing, he alienated his family, and because of that, they had to leave and get out of there. Well, you can imagine the effect this would have had on him. He was deeply, deeply depressed, and so he tried to kill himself. He took a revolver and put it in his mouth. But what they don't tell you about revolvers and weapons in general is that when the saliva gets into the barrel of the gun, and the tears and everything, and all the liquid gets in the gun, it can jam it. And that is the single most thing that saved him from such a fate. So what did he do? Unsuccessful, he went to a bar and drank himself into a stupor. But while he was doing so, this one beautiful woman came up to him, sort of familiar looking, sort of had this air of familiarity, yeah. And so he started talking to her, and for some unknown reason, he started telling her about what happened and what he had tried to do. And this woman, who he just met, seemed so shocked, seemed so put down, seemed so involved in him. Even more so than most of his fans. It was very deeply different. And so, while they were walking outside when they walked outside, and he was leaning on her a little bit, drunk, smelling of booze and whiskey, she said, "I'm going to make you an offer. I'll take away your pain, because this alcohol is only a momentary fix. I could take away your pain, but to do so, it will change your entire life. You will see things you have never seen. You will experience things you have never felt. And everything you know will be turned on its head. All the fantasy books you've written, all the novels about vampires and things like that, are all going to be unveiled in one dramatic showing that is going to be colossal." And so, having nothing else to live for, he decided to take her offer. And so, just like that, she drank him dry, and then she turned him. Yes, Stephen King became a vampire, and a toreador no less. but there was something very different. Something about Stephen King changed the way he became a vampire. Sorry, this hurt my arm. Let me change. Anyway, something about becoming a vampire changed him. He had powers that were completely different from most Toreador. It is still unclear why. Maybe it's because he's written things of a horrific nature for so long that it has become embedded into his body. Maybe he was gifted with certain singular powers. Maybe Malkav himself came down and gave him such a gift. Because when he was reborn, he had the power of presence, fortitude, celerity, and dementation, as well as dominate. He has these majority of powers that should be impossible for him to get. By the way, additional discipline is awesome. And so he became a vampire. And this woman, her name Kathleen, got what she truly desired, because she had been obsessed with Stephen King for years. Years and years. Years since he became moderately well known, she had been obsessed with him. For she has been alive for at least a century. She's an 11th generation vampire, and that means that Stephen King has become a 12th generation vampire. Stephen King took on a more characteristic Toreador nature, as well as it embedding his more sexual prowess, and in his mind became turned with the dominate powers and the dementation powers a little bit, and he started to take on this more savvy nature. He was still Stephen King, and he still had all those features that Stephen King would have, but something about his nature changed a little bit. And so he was taken to the prince, and he was shown to the prince, and he made him a slight suggestion to the prince that it was a bit crude and uncharacteristic for most vampires to do. And Alois, the prince of the city, did not like this. He kind of hated the way he was doing this. He sneered at it, being the adventurer he is. He scoffed his uptight upbringing at Stephen King. But Stephen King, unknown to him, was testing all the higher ups, because he had learned from Kathleen a few things about being a vampire in those months he was turned. He had learned about princes and elders and neonates and the clans, and because of that, he tested the prince. He said something so uncharacteristic and so and he wanted to understand what kind of people these elders and princes and primogen were. He wanted to understand. Sorry, switching again. My arm hurts. He wanted to understand how they worked, how their minds analyzed things. Crude may it be, and maybe it offered a bad introduction, but it gave him some insight. And unknown to them, he was using, well, not at first, not in Elysium, but gradually he began to use his eyes of chaos, his dementation power, to seek out their very soul and their very nature. And he began to look at people around him and understand what they are deep down inside. And from this, he began to analyze everything. He began to understand a great deal more than he should. As a 12th generation vampire, he has grown quite considerably in power. But there was one person who absolutely hated him for what he unintentionally had, because Kathleen had an old friend, a very old friend, and and this guy was a gangrel, a powerful gangrel who upholded the law in the city. And so he began to resent Stephen King. He began to show signs of jealousy and hate and rage. And slowly, as Stephen King grew in power and reputation, this person began to show signs that something terrible was going to happen. But Kathleen had been friends with this person so long and had done dominate powers with this person through the mental telepathic link of Auspex. And she had twirled her mind with his in such a way that she knew everything about him, or so she thought. Until one fateful day, Frederick, the gangrel, decided that he would do something that went against everything he thought, and that the power that he diablerized an entire vampire Nosferatu clan with, and he had become a fourth generation vampire. He would do something that he could do in his power to do. The generation hadn't changed him. He had been the same. He had been the same, and she had just misunderstood that he was actually jealous and rage and lust-filled. So he made a pact with the Tremere, Ignatius, and kidnapped Kathleen. And he did such horrible things to her. He broke Stephen's blood bond with her, with his own sire. He destroyed that blood bond. And because he did this, his fate had been sealed, or so we think, because that part hasn't been actually completed so too much yet. But Stephen had something that Frederick didn't know about. He had the power of Eyes of Chaos, one of indementation powers. And Stephen, months before that, well, not months, days before that, had seen Alois. He had seen Frederick kill him. He knew Frederick was a risk. He knew that Frederick would eventually try to make a move against him and try and kill him. But what he didn't know that he would break the blood bond between him and Kathleen. He didn't know he would do that. He thought he would go directly to him. But because he knew what had happened, he decided to take matters into his own hands. Stephen King came up with a very, very smart plan. Alois, the man at the beginning, the Primogen, the prince at the beginning who didn't like him, had went into torpor for a few weeks because someone had attacked him. And because of that, he had taken refuge with Stephen King in his house. And they have become friendly enough. So Stephen took Alois's two bodyguards who had powers and obfuscates and and a few gangrel powers. Oh, protein. Yeah, sorry. With the claws, the one that lets you have, you know what I mean. So he took them. And he got Frederick's clan together, 3 of Frederick's clan together, to help Kathleen. And then he got his 2 gangrels. He got his 2, sorry, I'm confusing words now. He got his 2, not blood dolls, his ghouls. He got 2 of his ghouls together. And then he got them to get super soakers filled with oil. And make Molotovs and these very sort of smart ways of doing things. I think that was genius, by the way. The super soakers filled with oil, because if you would have filled them with gasoline, it would just corroded the super soaker. But that was actually quite smart on my part. I have to give myself credit. There you go. So Stephen, he went and tracked the location of Kathleen down, and he came to a warehouse with all these people together, and they searched through the warehouse and finally found Kathleen you know. And he had made a deal with Ignatius, the Tremere, who had broken Kathleen's blood bond with Stephen. He made a deal with him. He's, you know, well, not really a deal. What he did was he actually deceived him quite well. He took the only person he knew that Ignatius cared for, and he twisted that relationship, and he made it seem that Frederick kidnapped her or took her, and because of that, he found a way to exploit Ignatius the Tremere, the very monstrous person, a very well-to-do person, a very resourceful person, a person who knew exactly what he was doing, who was very intelligent, and he didn't think he could be tricked by anyone, I'm sure, but he was. Frederick figured out, no, sorry, now I'm mixing up names again. Stephen figured out a way to trick Ignatius and into coming to the location that Frederick had deemed as a safe house, and they found Kathleen and got her. She had been naked, strapped to the tied up on a bed, and well, you can imagine exactly how Frederick had given her his own twisted version of the blood bond, but Frederick had only given her blood twice in 2 nights. That means that the third night had not come. So after that, they all broke ways, and Stephen and his ghouls they went into hiding until Stephen could re-administer Kathleen's blood bond, and that has been completed already. And now, actually, Ignatius knows about it now that Stephen deceived him, and actually he applauds him for his efforts because he didn't think that was even possible. He thought that the person Stephen kidnapped, Stephen made it seem like he did such horrible things to her, and a member of his own clan, no doubt. But no, he never laid a hair on her head, and she was actually responsible for making sure that Kathleen was safe again. And so she was. Now, Stephen made a new deal with Ignatius to kidnap Frederick. If Ignatius kidnaps Frederick, Stephen will erase 3 gangrels' minds of what they know. Very things that could prove a nuisance to Ignatius, but he isn't upholding his deal. Instead, what he is doing is he's creating an illusion of him erasing their memories. He's getting Kathleen, who is very good at domination, is getting her to erase his ghoul's mind and show the events that he erased the 3 gangrels' minds, and then he's going to show it to Ignatius, and then the 3 gangrels also are involved in it, are going to pretend like they actually like Ignatius because they don't. And then if that goes well, it would mean that Stephen is going to diablerize a 4th generation vampire. My ST told me that Stephen can only become a 9th gen because he's so far down in generation. I mean, so far, up in generation. So Stephen's a 12th gen, Frederick's a 4th, and if he diablerizes him, he'll become a 9th gen. But that's okay because Stephen has some other plans of his own. He has seen the night world of the vampires, and he has decided that they are all so corrupt and dark and evil. And so what he has decided to do is make a new branch, not a new clan yet. He doesn't have enough power for that. He's making a new branch of the Toreadors, and he's calling them the Kings. And he's taking these people, and once he has enough generation, he's going to start turning people and going independent away from the Camarilla, because there's one place that that Stephen knows exactly where he will have a holding against the Camarilla, a spot that has been hollowed out by Frederick. That one spot is under the city because Frederick destroyed all the Nosferatu there, and as much as Stephen doesn't want to take cover and residence underground, he has no other way. So he's going to make his first move. He's going to decorate the underground with lots of fabrics and stuff like this, and make a home for him under the ground for a while with his new found branch. And because of this, because it is underground, it means he can travel through all of LA. He can have a whole network under LA. And he's going to make his own branch, and then once that's started, he's going to slowly start and build power for himself and his people, and have a quiet sort of dignification, because he knows that the Camarilla and the clans and these people are so dominating and willing to turn against each other. If he has his own clan, he knows that they won't turn against him, and to do so would mean death, because the clan, those few who Stephen does feel are a part of his family, our family. He's going to take fans. Yeah, Stephen King is going to take his own fans and slowly start to turn them into vampires, and build himself a whole branch, and they're going to be called the Kings. Okay, that's all I have to say so far on the Stephen King story. Keep in touch, as I'll make part 2, or sometime later, but I'll make more videos soon.